Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I have the HappyRun Tank G60. There's been a couple reviews on the YouTubes about this bike, and people have been calling it a cheaper version of the Super 73, and I would have to agree with a price tag of $1,100. Now you actually have a pretty decent bike for that price. You got a large motor, pretty fast top speed. The suspension is very nice. This is actually a full suspension bike, and then just a cool design. I like bikes that have a little pizzazz, a little flair to them, and I think this has got it. I want to start the review off by talking about the things that these guys did really well. The first thing I liked is the frame design. It's a tube frame, which looks pretty cool. It just gives this cool kind of raw, tough man vibe. The most prominent feature about this bike is the saddle. The length, the color, which matches the wheels, which helps to tie the bike in together, and then the angle. So as you move back, it actually lifts up, it raises up, which aesthetically just looks pretty cool. Since it's in a fixed position, you can't raise it up, but what you can do is just slide back. I can almost straighten my leg out. Rather than if you're a shorter rider, you scoot all the way up. I've got a nice bend to my knee now. That is how you adjust the rider size, by just sliding up and down on the saddle. Now you got BMX style handlebars. I've got them set to where they're pretty much straight up, and that does give you an upright posture. But again, depending on your size, you can adjust the handlebars, and how to do this is pretty easy. There's just 4 screws. For the bigger riders, you can push those pretty far out. Rather, if you're a smaller rider, bring them in. So you can adjust the cockpit area by just pulling these in or pushing them out. One of my favorite features about the bike is that it's full suspension. A full suspension moped bike for $1,100 is pretty awesome. And it's not what you would expect for that price. Typically, suspension on bikes that are that cheap are pretty rough and rugged and don't really work all that well. But this is not the case. I'm just gonna kind of bounce on that a little bit. It sounds loud, but it actually is pretty cushy, and you can adjust the play, so you can lock that out. You can also adjust the stiffness. Most bikes in this price range have that ability, but when you actually do it, there's really no effect. Okay, I got the suspension all the way loose. I just bouncing on it now. That's pretty cushy. All right, let's see what kind of a bump it takes to bottom these out. Oh, I think that one already did it. But that's all the way loose. So let me tighten this up. Hit in this same spot. Yeah, it didn't bottom out that time. Now these guys say that they have a 750 watt motor that peaks at 1500 watts. I have a tough time believing that because you really don't have a ton of torque with this. The acceleration for both pedal assist and straight throttle are pretty slow off the line. And with pedal assist, there is about a 1.5 revolution before the power hits. With the throttle, it does hit right away, and it's more powerful than pedal assist. Now, as far as speed goes, there are 3 speed modes. There's this green button on the right side. It says S, kind of a flimsy, cheap feeling button. Here's what I got when pedaling on those 3 speed modes. 1 is 20, 2 is 24, and 3 is 25. On the right, you have a standard half twist throttle, pretty much the same half twist throttle I see on 90% of e-bikes. On speed mode 3, when I was pedaling, I could only hit about 25 miles per hour. When I used the throttle, I got that up to 29, 30. So overall, you do have more power when you use the throttle than when you're pedaling. It's time to really test out that motor to see if it really can produce 1500 watts. If it can, it shouldn't have any problem tackling this 26% grade hill. I kind of suspected that it wasn't going to do that well for the hill test. I made it to the top, but you've got to help it out, and you got to help it out a lot. Another thing that you get for the price, which surprised me, was hydraulic brakes. And it's also got my favorite brake lever. This is the type where you can adjust the play just by turning the screw. The right lever controls the rear brake, the left the front. And when you hit the brake levers, it does light up the tail light. Here's the stopping distance on all 3 of the speed modes when topping each of those modes out. I got a big old long skid mark. Has about 36 feet to stop from going 27, 28 miles an hour. And the back wheel did fishtail a little bit. It wasn't like super bad, but enough to notice it. Most companies give a range rating based on optimal conditions. You know, a light rider going fairly slow, 15 to 16, 17 miles per hour. I don't believe in that. I believe in topping the bike out, especially when it looks as cool as this. So I'm gonna take off and do a range test with the bike flat out. Well, I made it back from the range test, and my app recorded over 15.5 miles with over 1,000 feet of elevation gain. My average speed was about 22 to 23 miles per hour. This is the type of bike where the speed is going to fluctuate quite a bit with even the slightest variation in terrain. As you saw in the acceleration and the hill test, there's not a ton of torque. Even with the slightest hill, the bike slows down quite a bit. And I didn't pedal at all, that was just full throttle. So that's what you can expect when you top the bike out using full throttle, and if you're around my weight of 190 pounds. Now I want to walk you through the stuff that I liked and didn't like. And the first thing I want to talk about are the grips. Those are pretty much as cheap as you can go for grips. Next to that, you have a headlight. Bam! Turn the key, the daytime headlights illuminates, lights up, which isn't that bright, but you got some visibility for daytime riding. Then if you hit the headlight button, that lights up. That is very bright. It looks pretty cool. It's pretty bright for some night riding. And then you have left and right blinkers. Moving over to the right side, there's a Shimano 7-speed SIS index shifter. And then that's pretty much it for all the components along the handlebars. As far as the wiring, it's tied together, so it looks clean. And I like what they've done underneath. They've wrapped it and put it pretty close to the frame so it's not hanging or dangling. Moving down to the fenders, these are your standard cheap plastic fenders. And there is one for the front wheel, I just didn't add it. And then in the back, you have a Shimano tourney derailleur, which again is another standard component for bikes in this price range. For whatever reason, they decided to add foldable pedals. Not sure why they went that route, because nothing else folds. I do like the BMX style rims. They just look cool on a moped style bike. And then you have Jijuicer. I've never seen that brand before, but Jijuicer Sport 20 by 4 inch all-terrain fat tires. And for whatever reason, these things are very loud. The good news though is that it was the only loud thing about the bike. Everything else was very solid. My three favorite features about the Tank G60 is the full suspension. I thought it actually has pretty good suspension for an $1,100 bike. The second thing I liked is the cool design. I like the tube frame, the saddle design and how it angles up, and then the BMX style handlebars and rims that just helps to tie the bike together. And then the last thing that I liked was the cool looking headlights. So there you go, that wraps up the review. I appreciate you guys hopping on here and checking out my content, and have a good day.